call this meeting to order. Please rise and join with me in reciting the pledge and remain standing, and Rodney will lead us in prayer this evening. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So thank you, Father, for bringing us together. We ask you to give us clarity of mind, wisdom, and strength to make great decisions. And we thank you for the great town we live in the name of Jesus. Amen.
Amen.
roll call, please, Jill.
Mr. Frericks?
Here.
Ms. Stevens? Here. Ms. Harlan?
Here.
Mr. Reed? Mr. Jones?
Here.
Mr. Brock?
Here.
Mr. Burris?
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. No one signed up for public participation this evening, so we'll move on to item 3, consent agenda, approval of documents and action items as listed. Claims report, claims dated May 29, 2019 through June 10, 2019. Meeting minutes, City Council meeting minutes, May 28, 2019. Permit report, May 2019. Police report, May 2019. Police pension annual report 2018. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any questions or comments? Can I have a roll call, Jill?
Mr. Burris?
Yeah, proof. I was waiting for him to go first.
Hey, I'm trying to shake things up a
I
little
told
bit.
her not to do that.
Yeah, I got in trouble. Mr. Brock?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Ms. Harlan?
Yes.
Ms. Stevens?
Yes.
Mr. Frericks?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Mayor's report. If I can find, oops. Upcoming events. The farmers market will begin this for the season on Thursday from 3:30 to 6:30. This is the 20th year that Monticello Main Street has held this event. Father's Day train rides June 15th and 16th at the Monticello Railway Museum. Catch up on the latest happening at the Allerton Blend meeting Thursday, June 20th, 9 a.m. at Greenhouse Cafe. The annual Piatt County Trailblazers Rodeo is Thursday, June 20th through Saturday, June 22nd, with the rodeo parade Saturday. June Steam Weekend, Steam Train Weekend, June 22nd and 23rd at the Railway Museum. And the annual Joint Review Board meeting for the TIF District Number 2 is Friday, June 21st at 1 p.m. at the Municipal Building. No old business. Move on to item A under new business, airport update presentation, discussion only. Mike Atwood, is that right? Were you going to say something?
Resolution for the software.
It's not on this page that I'm reading.
Let it go.
Yeah.
My agenda has the airport update first.
No.
No, it doesn't.
I was going to say,
This didn't,
6.1.
right, it's here, but it's not here. Thank you. I'm sorry, you mind waiting?
I certainly don't.
They do.
I'm not going to wrestle it.
They do everything they possibly can do to make me look like the village idiot. All right, Resolution 2019-30, a resolution approving a shared agency agreement with Motorola and Piatt County. Terry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My apologies. The agenda goes out on Wednesdays. The city still works and functions through the rest of the week. This happens to be something that came up from a meeting with Chief Carter and Sheriff Hunt is with us tonight as well. Thursday morning, Friday morning, Attorney Dirk Price, so on and so forth. So I apologize, but we sent it back out, I think, Friday afternoon with numerous phone calls between all those involved. And the reason it's out of order as far as 2019-30, it was going to be a motion, and then there was added documents that we could go ahead and pass the resolution tonight. So if we would have redone everything, everybody would have had to come back into City Hall off their jobs, and redo 2019-27, 2019-28, 2019-29. So I apologize for that as well. So what this is some, I'm going to speak briefly and then kind of throw it over to law enforcement's lab. Chief Carter and Sheriff Hunt have been talking about some record data storage management systems in conjunction with what Pike County uses in DeWitt County. DeWitt County is the backup for Pike County. So this seems to fit with local law agencies, and this just agrees to enter into an agreement with Pike County / Spillman Software for the sum of $31,865 for the software that's going to be out of next year's 2020 budget under the police department. So, Chief, do you have anything to add, or Sheriff Hunt?
Yes, yeah, so the way this came about, Mayor and the board, is that Pike County has been working off of a records management system or a jail management system that was developed back in the late 80s. So it's based on a DOS program. So it's pretty antiquated, so don't chop it too hard. There's been, like Clinton PD and DeWitt County have all gone from the system that we currently use to another system, and now they're moving on to another one. So we've kind of, we're skipping a generation and finally coming up to the 21st century, I guess. So we are DeWitt County's backup in the dispatch center, and they are our backup. We're also a backup to Ford County. They asked us to participate in this since we're kind of working together, collaborating on these projects, to join into this records management system. Now for us, it's more than just a records management system like it is for the Monticello Police Department. That's all they do. They'll do their rest and their reports on that system. But for us, it's a records management system plus our jail management system plus a CAD system. And what this will do is it will give real-time information to the officers on the streets via their computers. But we want to join together, keeps the cost down, get more people that participate, and try to save some money.
Anything else, John? He was eloquent. I know that'd be tough to follow. Questions?
Are the computers you have now going to be able to work with this update, or are you going to have to update your hardware as well?
Our current building computers will be able to handle it. The in-car computers, I don't know if that's what you're asking about, those are getting outdated, so we're going to have to upgrade, and we're looking at that right now as well. So personally, we'll have to upgrade our hardware and stuff.
That's the county, I think it's more.
And the city as well.
It was January 1, Verizon goes, they knock off everything 3G and lower. So we have to upgrade everything to 4G. We have 5 of the 8 cars outfitted for the 4G. So we're short some. We're going to look at other options as we go along. We're not going to rush to buy any more laptops. They'll just go from car to car. Each car has a docking station. So when they get in, they'll dock it. So it remains full battery. They have the antenna to get better signal. But we're not looking at purchasing any more equipment at this time.
Any other comments or questions? Is there a motion to approve Resolution 2019-30, a resolution approving a shared agency agreement with Motorola in Piatt County?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any comments now? Hearing or seeing none, Jill, can I have a roll call?
Ms. Harlan?
Yes.
Ms. Stevens?
Yes.
Mr. Frerichs?
Yes.
Mr. Burris?
Yes.
Mr. Brock?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Okay, now let's move on to item B, airport update presentation discussion only. Mike Allen.
Thank you. I will be brief. You'll notice I don't have a big pile of stuff, so that's positive. I'm here really just to give you an update, and I know there are some new faces, and so if you want additional background, I'd be happy to give you that. There's a big packet, but we have a brief review. Airport and Monticello had been around long time. There was an issue with the current location that came up in the late 90s, 20 years ago, and a group worked on that, excuse me, for a good period of time. There were starts and stops, and over a 20-year period, weren't able to come to resolution on that.
Go ahead.
Shall I continue?
Yes, please.
Weren't able to come to resolution with that primarily because we had the landowners that had the lease. It's private property, and it's private property and everything that comes with that just did not want to see the lease continue. So the general consensus was if you have an airport and you can keep an airport, even what a lot of people see as a small airport in a community like this, it's a brick in the wall. You know, one of the things that makes Monticello great, just like a whole cadre of other things. So if you can keep it, you should. The city's involvement really was twofold. One, it's a municipal airport, public use airport, needs a sponsor, a municipal sponsor. So the city has sponsored the airport. They haven't done any actual activity work out there. There's another organization that does all the work and runs the airport. And financially, the city committed about, I think, $5,000 a year. Not a lot of money in that grand scheme of things that I think mostly went to maintenance and mowing. Okay, so that was the involvement. So a group was formed of community leaders to study the issue. Ultimately, the airport lease was coming to an end in February. So we were trying to get to the finish line with the owners before that happened because the process of relocating the airport is much more complicated. So we weren't able to get that done because the landowners just didn't desire that, and it's their property. So I told you at that time, I think in November or December, that a smaller group would be working behind the scenes to look at maybe relocating and some other options. So there's been a lot of work that has gone on. The other piece of that is non-governmental money, private money, had stepped forward to kind of help not only fund the exploration but operate the airport because we understood there wasn't the push to have public money to relocate or run or buy an airport was not something we were looking at. So where we have stood, I think we identified, call it 6 or 7 properties that appeared feasible. We had some feasibility studies done by an engineering firm that was all funded by this outside donor money. We got those back. We have willing landowners in most cases, so we have lots of options that we're considering. So that's all very, very positive. I would like to give you much more detail on that, but because we're in that still phase of trying to figure out with these property owners, there's interest in the deal until you see what the deal is, right? And so I can't give you a lot of detail there. I just wanted to give you the update, and then just generally, because out of sight, out of mind, right? Make sure that, and I'm not looking for any action on this, but just generally that that sentiment hasn't changed at all on that, because there is a lot of work that's being done by private citizens that, assuming that all of the details are acceptable, and that's a big assumption since I'm not giving you any details, right? I understand that. But assuming that all of the details would be acceptable, that the city is still willing to be the sponsor at a level that doesn't exceed certainly what the role was before. Okay. So again, I don't need any action on that. I just want to know if that sentiment has changed. Now is the time to tell me before other work gets done. All right.
Any comments, questions? I'm glad to hear that it's still being looked into.
A lot of work being done.
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
Yeah, we think it's important. It's I'm not an aviation guy myself. I've learned all about this from being associated with this grassroots group, and I do buy into the fact that it is an important part of. There's probably 100 of these things in Monticello that make Monticello great, and you got to fight like heck before you're really able to go. Now, if we were asking for $1 million of taxpayer money, that'd be a different story.
I could tell you what the answer would be. I wouldn't even bring it up. Yeah, John?
Regarding any type of agreement on actual location, are you
Right.
talking 1 to 2 months or still another year out? Or I mean, where's that timeline on that?
You know,
if you can share that.
Yeah, no, I don't know. I mean, what I'll tell you is that we have willing, we have for the most part, I don't know if I'll say all of the property owners identified, but most of them are willing to say, yeah, we're interested in talking based on the engineering studies. We have sort of priorities, And we're also trying, we recognize that, you know, that this doesn't work if there's any public disruption, and so it's important to minimize the people affected and all that kind of stuff. So, you know, this is farm ground's in production now, we're dealing around those things, but I would hope that maybe within the next couple of months we could have something hammered out.
So is this something that can happen down the road again? Are you gonna get, how long a lease are you looking at, I guess? Like
Yeah, well, again, that depends on the negotiation, right? So we would love to be able to just acquire the land, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And again, we're looking at other options for other sources of money. I mean, I think one thing that has been interesting to me since this came up is I've had many people that I would have never guessed have said, boy, I'm glad this is going on, it's important, and let me know what we can do to help. So, but again, that kind of depends, right? Buy or lease depends on the numbers and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah. And the state, I will say, has been great to work with. We've had a little trepidation about that, but they've been
They've been
very great
cooperative.
to work with.
That's great, I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah,
Anyone else have a comment or a question?
okay.
Thanks a lot, Mike.
Great. Well, I will, don't want to be rude, I'll excuse myself and catch the back end of a Little League game, if that's okay.
I don't mind. Go right ahead. Can I go with you?
Thank you for your time.
Thanks a lot. Okay. Let's move on to ordinance 2019-27, an ordinance approving the final plat of Red's Edition, and I think this goes to Brett.
Yes, sir. Robert Cox with Survey Solutions has submitted a final plat for Red's Edition. It's located within the city of Monticello, and all the supporting documents the city staff for review. This subdivision replat will take 2 lots, simply shift the property lines to enlarge an adjacent lot on 441 and 431 Fitzler Road. Those 2 lots will become Lot 1 and Lot 2 of Red's Edition that's located there on Fitzler Road. This replat meets the definition requirements of Chapter 152 of the Municipal Code for expedited final plat submission, review, and approval. Subdivision minor. The subdivision requires no preliminary plan nor public hearing or action of the Planning and Zoning Board, but does require City Council approval by way of ordinance passage. Recommend the City Council discuss and approve the final plat of Red's Edition to the City of Monticello.
Comments, questions?
Brett, does it just take the same area then and just redistribute it? Is that what's
Yeah,
happening?
it's got, if you look at the plat that was submitted on there, it's simply moving one of the property lines to enlarge one of the lots.
Okay.
It's still under single ownership. It's not, this doesn't change ownership. This just moving a couple more lines.
Okay.
Is that, am I right, that's Redbud?
What's that?
Is that Redbud sewer? area?
No, it's not quite that far down.
Okay,
Pretty close, but not quite that far.
Anyone else? Is there a motion to approve ordinance 2019, excuse me, is there a motion to waive second reading?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Jill, can I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Burris?
yes.
Mr. Rock?
Yes.
Mr. Jones? Ms. Harlan?
Yes.
Ms. Stevens?
Yes.
Mr. Frericks?
Yes, ma'am.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve ordinance 2019-27, an ordinance approving the final plat of Red's Edition?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Yes. Second.
Any comments or questions before we vote? Jill, may I have a roll call?
Mr. Frericks?
Yes.
Ms. Stevens?
Yes.
Ms. Harlan?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Brock?
Yes.
Mr. Burris?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Moving on to resolution 2019-28, acceptance of proposal to furnish materials and approval of award 2019 motor fuel tax general maintenance oil and chip seal coat. And this goes to
Me as well.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve Resolution 2019-28 of acceptance of proposal to furnish materials and approval of award 2019 motor fuel tax general maintenance oil and chip seal coat? Is there a second?
Second.
Any comments or discussion before we vote?
This is just the two bids? Is that what's on this?
Yeah, it's the two bids, which is typically what we get. There's not a whole lot,
Right.
there's not a whole big group of contractors that do the seal coat. So this is typically what we get is,
You'll see Ileana and Earl Walker
yeah.
every year.
Sometimes they're a walk, sometimes Tony's.
By hair.
Yeah, it's pretty,
This
yeah, it's
was
pretty
close.
Pretty close.
Anyone else? Roll call, Jill.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Brock?
Yes.
Mr. Burris?
Yes.
Mr. Frericks?
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Stevens?
Yes.
Ms. Harlan?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to Resolution 2019-29, a resolution approving the creation of a business development district plan. I think this goes to Terry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Keith Moran is going to join us. I'm going to start the conversation off. I think Mr. Moran is going to pass around some of the documents that he's going to talk about tonight. The Monticello City Council discussed the possibility of a business district on 3 separate occasions in 2018 and included $20,000 in the fiscal year 2019 budget for the creation of a business district plan. City staff provided the first presentation for discussion on August 13th, 2018. During this meeting, the City Council directed staff to schedule a professional consultant experienced with business districts to present at a future date on Tuesday, October 9th, 2018. Professional consultant Keith Moran, again present this evening, with Moran Economic Development, provided additional information to the council regarding business districts, including how a business district works, provided several examples and eligible items for consideration, and provided examples of other nearby or similar communities that utilize a business district tax. As you may recall, a municipality may impose up to a 1% sales tax in 0.25% increments. Revenues generated from the business district could provide a funding source for public and private projects deemed eligible by state statute and located within the business district area. Business district plan is required by state statute prior to the implementation of the associated sales tax, should a sales tax be approved by the City Council at a future date. Please refer to the attached schedule of events. I think that's an important piece of paper. It lays out what Mr. Moran and staff feels is doable this year for a tax to be implemented at the beginning of 2020. It includes the publication and date of a public hearing. That public hearing is required by state statute. The adopting ordinance of the business district plan authorizing the collection of sales tax, and the plan submittal to the Illinois Department of Revenue. Included in your packets tonight is Resolution 2019-29, Agreement for Technical Services with Moran Economic Development, Monticello Business District Schedule of Events I mentioned, and draft ordinance that sets the public hearing date, and then Exhibit A is the preliminary boundary map. It is recommended the City Council discuss and approve Resolution 2019-29, and in so doing authorizing Moran Economic Development to complete a business district plan while fully understanding that no sales tax will be imposed until further action and approval by this City Council. So I'm going to hand it over to Mr. Moran, and I think he's going to go over some of the documents he provided and highlight some important areas. So Keith?
Thank you, Terry, and thank you, Mayor. Thank you guys for being, for allowing me to be here to talk a little bit about the business district process. Basically, the business districts program is one of the few economic development tools local municipalities can use, can have at their disposal to correct some ills throughout the community. It's a sales tax-based program. It's not TIF related whatsoever or property tax related whatsoever. It's purely a sales tax-based program. Monies generated in your business district area are to be spent predominantly, almost exclusively, in the business district area. And so what happens is, by creation of the business district, it allows you to bump up your sales tax by just a little bit, and then those monies generated there are spent there. And so, so businesses and residents, if there are residents, a few in there, not that are impacted whatsoever, are benefited through a redevelopment plan as well. Okay, so not only are we going to generate monies in this area, we're going to spend the monies in this area to do all sorts of things, of which I'll quickly kind of go over and of which you've kind of summed up. But basically, just sort of a continuation as to how we got there, and I think it helps with the discussion, is it's a newer economic development tool. Already kind of talked about it being sales tax based only, not TIF related. Turning the page, I'm going to refer to the memo-ish, or the smaller document for the time being. When we first got this, we kind of looked at what our sales tax rates were, and right now we're sitting at around 7.25%. Should you do the business district, you could bump that up to 1%, making your total sales tax rate of 8.25%. Where do we sit in terms of our neighbors? When we look over at Decatur, we got a 9.25% rate. With Champaign, we got 9%. Maroa, 8.75%. Forsyth, 8.75%. Cerro Gordo, if I pronounced that right, hopefully I did, is sitting at 8.25%. Argenta, 7.75%. Farmer City actually has two business districts. They're sitting at 7.25% because they don't have the county school facility tax quite there yet. So when we evaluate where we are sales tax wise, you guys will continue to be at or below where many of your neighbors go. Certainly where more folks are going to be going shopping if they're not doing that shopping here in the city. And so, obviously if the opposite were to be the case, I don't think we'd be sitting here. But in terms of the business district as well, the area's got to be contiguous and only parcels that benefit from the plan. It allows non-home rule communities to meet economic development challenges. The plan and program is together for 23 years, which is similar to TIF. We talked about the money being generated in the business district and spent in the business district. Surplus funds ultimately can be transferred to your general fund. But you would have to do away with the business district program at that time. The tax is not imposed, and this is kind of important, I think, for folks to remember. It's not imposed on anything that's licensed to the state of Illinois. So if somehow, I don't believe we have any auto dealers in the area, we've purposely left them out. Actually, they wouldn't be impacted anyway. Any cars that would be licensed to the state, the tax doesn't hit. Anything medical related, the tax doesn't. So any prescription drugs, anything medical related, the tax is not imposed, and nothing grocery related is going to be imposed. And so, fixed income folks or high ticket items are not impacted by the business district program. So I just think it's important to note that. Eligible costs, turning the page, and we're not quite to that stage yet, but we will soon hopefully get to that stage. These are what you can spend monies on. It's in some cases for our council members that have been around, you've got your TIF program, and there are many of the costs that are eligible in TIF are also eligible under the business district. Except business district, it's expanded a little bit. I mean, you can build actual new buildings as opposed to the TIF program. You can't quite do that. People are using it for public safety measures, all sorts of other public improvements are as defined in the Act, and these are some of your eligible costs. I don't need to go through every one of them, but those, and we're going to allow your plan, we're going to give your plan the flexibility to where in year 17 of your district program, if something popped up along those lines, you'd be able to spend money on those things. How much are we looking at? It's going to depend as to what rate, if any, you guys impose through this program. What we did was we took some baseline calculations, basically took your regular sales tax collections and just simply divided it in half. And you can kind of see if we do you can kind of see kind of where we're at in terms of revenue generation. You guys can really make some significant improvements in this area with the kind of money that we could see generated as a result, and a very minimal impact to your average customer. I think the benefit overall, considering some of the projects that I think you might want to do, are going to far surpass what the simple tax. And so turning the page, some of the things that we've talked a little bit about. So we've got certain costs that are eligible. We've got, we're going to create a revenue stream that's about what we think it is. I can't determine exactly what that revenue stream is. We can kind of just be in general there. But now, what would we want to do with what would we want to do with these dollars? Should you form the business district? Some of the goals and objectives that we've identified through working with staff is obviously get rid of some of the blighting conditions within the district, of which I'll go over here pretty soon. Provide assistance in facilitating the highest level of public safety of the community. We want to recruit new businesses to the area to promote future sales tax growth. Retain existing businesses, and I think that's probably even more important to the city here. We want to enhance the property tax base. Find other ways to induce development within our business district area. Repair, renovation, and remodel of existing programs. I can see and ultimately maybe a facade improvement program being developed along the lines utilizing business district proceeds. That would also help expansion of existing buildings, improve the marketability of existing buildings, and you guys have done a nice job here. Beautification efforts, improving your streetscape and signage, including other important signage improvements downtown especially. Improve your stormwater management infrastructure, could be something you utilize business district funds for, including replacement of underground culverts, improvements of your utility trunk lines, water, sanitary, sewer, telephone, all those things. Bearing of your utilities as well, particularly along Center Street. Street work, lots of street work here. That's not easy to fund. Business district funds could be used to help with improving streets, including intersection improvements such as Bridge Street and Foothill Road, and obviously construction and reconstruction of sidewalks through the area. So you've got a decent revenue stream that can be generated to cure some ills that you wish you could have, I'm sure. And what we ultimately want to do is have our business district plan be flexible to take care of issues that could arise over the course of a 23-year program, but also get us off to the right start and use and identify some projects that we might specifically want to use or fund in the next 1 to 7 years or along those lines. So I just wanted to kind of get you introduced into the next phase of the business district before going into the stuff you don't want to hear about, how the area qualifies, because we can't just circle an area in the city and say, hey, here's our business district. The area does have to qualify under the Illinois Business District Statute, and so we performed what's called a blight analysis. Not every property in the business district area has to qualify under the act in order for it to be included. It's the area as a whole that we're looking at, and as opposed to TIF, where there's instances where you need 3 or 4 or 5 factors to exist, we only need 1 to exist to a qualifying extent for you guys to actually do a business district plan. And so, provided there's no questions there, and I can take questions yeah, I can stop at any point before I segue into that, or?
Yeah, I think, let me interject something real quick. So, I think the plan, you know, they've finished and completed a portion of the plan, and I think these figures that Mr. Moran provides on page 4, they're a little bit more elevated than what Callie has provided in the past. That's part of this plan that we're going to fine tune those numbers to make sure we're somewhere in the right realm of things here. So keep in mind that actually the streetscape project, Keith mentioned that that's a possibility. The streetscape project that we're going to be doing is north of $300,000 this year. That's being paid from motor fuel tax money. That's just a kind of a glimpse of a streetscape project, $350,000, and that's 2019 prices. So this is could be a 23-year plan. The flexibility Keith mentioned, what's going to happen in year 15? What's going to come up in year 20? So I think some of that flexibility is imperative as we move forward. So some of these numbers are a little bit higher than what Callie and I presented, I don't know, a year ago maybe now. So that's all.
No problem. No problem. Other things I want to, but before I even get into it, because I don't want to forget, is just in terms of schedule. Well, maybe that's better as we close out. I'll talk about the schedule. But for now, let's just talk briefly about the blight analysis. Basically, it's required of the business district statute, and I'm going to briefly go through it. I do have maps of the area that we're referencing. If anybody would want a map of the area, I do have that. It's mostly basically our downtown. Our prime commercial ground is what's going to be, what we're looking at, incorporating the business area. And so, basically, where most all things happen in the city is where we're at. So this is the actual area that we're talking about from a blight analysis standpoint. And I'll just go, just to keep things moving, I'll start basically on page 3. But like I said, the area contains a significant amount of the city's commercial, some of its industrial property. It does include some residential, but that's more incidental than anything else. And where a property might be residential now, it could be converted to commercial possibly later. And we'd like to create clean boundaries for all this as well. And so starting on page 3, the proposed district, it's about 190 parcels of property in the downtown portion of the city. The area qualifies, and like I said, it doesn't have to be smeared. We don't have to have every single building falling down or your streets to be cracked and completely falling apart. But we do have, the area does qualify due to defective, non-existent, or inadequate street layout. Some of that has to do with West Center Street and Bridge Street is currently in the planning stages for complete replacement due to some poor conditions there. You also have issues where your streets, you have to replace a lot of your infrastructure, which then ultimately, some of your water lines, sewer lines, those types of things, ultimately muck up our streets as well. We also have some asphalt roads in and around the city square area that could be improved as well. And so just that alone is a qualifying factor. We also have unsanitary or unsafe conditions in the proposed district. Basically, a lot of that having to do with stormwater issues and infiltration issues that you guys, I know, fight and talk with your engineers about and hate paying for. But that is also, that failing infrastructure causes, how many manholes have you guys been having to fix over the years? So the area qualifies under that criteria. We also have deterioration of site improvements. About 65% of the 188 structures in the area show some form of notable defect. It is probably in many ways, in cases, it's our older areas of town. And so it's likely to be deteriorated. What we're talking about there is instances of exterior walls, roofs, doors, windows, and gutters. So more than 50% of our area has some deterioration or structural deterioration. We also have 62% of our parcels exhibit some form of deteriorated surface improvements. What we're talking about there are sidewalk issues, grass or weed growth, and some of the surface improvements, parking lots, entryways, alleyways, and some of our street areas. And I already kind of talked a little bit about deterioration of site improvements from a utility standpoint. Water, sanitary sewer, and stormwater systems are in need of repairs, especially in some of these areas. The area also has improper subdivision or obsolete platting. Many of the parcels are which we find often in our downtown areas. Downtown has sort of evolved from the early 1900s to now. And, we have difficulties with alleys and truck routes and all those types of things, and so the area qualifies from an obsolete platting standpoint. We do have some flooding issues, which are noted as well. And so the area quite easily actually qualifies under the statute. Like I said, we'd only need one to exist to a qualifying extent, and we have 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. The area, one of the other things we look at in terms of, we look at what our EAVs, what are our property values doing in the area. One thing we found is that when you compare, there's been a couple of instances, there's been a couple of projects, and I need to talk to you about them, that have really helped the commercial areas that have newer projects that have generated new tax revenue, but only a couple. Most all of your other property is commercial property is staying stagnant or it's declined. But for a couple of bigger time projects that have occurred over here, you're very, very stagnant. Between 2016 and 17, your commercial property saw a 5% decline in EAV, which isn't good for us here or our taxing districts for that matter. Our residential area, is actually, which you don't find too often, is growing at a faster rate than our commercial properties. And also 99% of the properties in our area have had annual growth rates less than the balance of the city and CPI for the last 3 years. And so what it means is we're focused on, if I may, we're focusing on an area that we could use some new investment in. That's kind of what we're saying. It's obviously an important part of the city. It's been the subject of not only your comprehensive plan, but numerous other strategic master plans that you guys have on file as well. In the end, if we do the full business district, there'll be a business district redevelopment plan where we'll identify some projects and isolate some goals and objectives, things that we can do to not only alleviate some of the blighting conditions, but also help you guys do other things as well. And so the area pretty easily qualifies under business district statute, which is a requirement for you guys to proceed with a business district plan. Usually sometimes we do these things all at the same time, where we talk about the blight analysis and then have a redevelopment plan right behind it. So the next time we visit, we'd probably say, okay, you got these issues, this is what we're gonna do about it. And that's what your plan focuses on. And so I kind of started, and Terry started with kind of talking about that, just kind of put the cart ahead of the horse a little bit, just to get you guys thinking about what you might want to do. But these are real life issues for this area that the business district can help correct.
Questions or comments so far?
Keith, in regards to the Row, Saragordo, and Farmer City business districts, do you know how long they've been in place?
Farmer City, it's been 2015 or 16. Saragordo, maybe just a little bit ahead of that. Maybe 14. Yeah, I didn't do that one. I did Farmer City.
Any idea on their success, community feedback, things like that?
Farmer City's doing quite well. They're just now starting to move a lot of funnel their monies into their downtown area and make some public improvements there. Neither of them have where you're different is you're going to generate real money. I mean, those places struggle to, with sales tax dollars, they don't have quite as much. And so it's taken a while for those programs to really get going for them to make some wholesale improvements. But Farmer City, I know it's gone quite well.
You said you were a part of that one?
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any, well, I guess we could, I was just curious as far as the public hearing goes, if you had any interesting comments during that from the community?
What helps is the fact that
How
it,
they responded to it.
well, you know, it's obviously a valid question. Typically not, honestly. I think if we had sales tax rates where they were grossly higher than where folks would go, I mean, people kind of get it. And with us being at or below where other people are, you know, they don't have a problem with it. Sometimes your retailers might not understand it, but or might suggest that they're not as competitive as others. I think once you show them the sales tax information and data, they're going to find, well, anywhere else they go, they're still going to be lower. I think we've done a nice job of incorporating, from a city standpoint, we've got a considerable amount of your businesses here, so it's not as if we've got a bunch of folks that aren't paying the tax that are. I mean, we've got pretty much the major ones, everyone's contributing. The other nice thing is that we have a plan behind it. You know, if you're going to see wholesale changes occur, your streets are going to be more walkable, your utilities are going to work that much better, you're going to have beautification efforts, all those types of things that you're going to see directly from business district proceeds, as opposed to general fund monies that might fix a street on Taylor Street on the north side of town and doing nothing but maybe downtown. You're going to see those dollars, and so actually have had a lot of success with it. The nice thing also is that it's going to be pretty quick. If provided we get the business district done by October 1st, more or less September 30th, everything would start in January 1st. You guys would be collecting dollars every month beginning in April 2020. And so you guys can get right at it.
Anyone else? Do you have more to proceed with? Or?
I don't, yeah, I wanted to touch on the scheduling standpoint, the September 30th. But basically, we'd like to work with staff, provided you guys pass the resolution. We'd like to work with your staff on putting together a plan. Basically, what are your hopes and dreams for the next 23 years for this area? We'll be general in some ways and specific in others. Just to plan for all things that could come your way.
Okay. What do I need to do to proceed, Jerry?
I think just for informational purposes as well, the city staff did reach out to the Chamber of Commerce and Monticello Main Street. We've had a couple of meetings with Monticello Main Street just to keep them informed, some education efforts. So we're trying to communicate. We haven't talked to every business owner, but we have talked to some. Monticello Main Street seems to be excited about the possibilities here. So tonight we just want to, like I said, it's recommended that we discuss this and then approve Resolution 2019-29 authorizing Moran Economic Development to continue and complete the business district plan and go through the schedule of events. We'll be back in front of you guys to the public hearing and so on and so forth.
Is there a motion to approve Resolution 2019-29, a resolution approving the creation of a business development district plan?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any comments or questions before we begin? Or before we
Terry,
vote?
you mentioned that you have talked to some of the local businesses that would be impacted, and what kind of reception have you had from them?
It's kind of mixed. I haven't been thrown out of their establishment yet, but it kind of depends. You know, there's some places downtown. I just talked to an individual today that 90% of business X is visitors. It's out of town. It is not residents of Monticello. And that can be said for a handful of the businesses downtown. Like Callie mentioned, it's kind of a pass-through tax. So, you know, there's been some people that have invested a lot of money in their businesses that wish they would have had something like this. So I don't know if you want to shame on us for we don't have it in place for that individual, but we're going to have it in place for others. So all in all, I think it's been really
Well, I think
fairly well
I think the
received.
climate in the community's changed somewhat too. I think people
Yes.
are more interested in seeing things happen. Kelly, do you?
Yeah, I was just gonna add, you know, you kind of nailed it with, I wish before I put $1 million or $500,000 into my building, I would have had something a little stronger than a $3,000 grant. That's one of the things we're trying to accomplish, of course. I am hearing a lot of people when we talk about, you know, for example, the Wabash Plaza that we're thinking, that we've been talking about for years out here. And you mentioned that, well, this is a possibility. Oh, that would be great. How long has it been we've been talking about that? You know, they want to, and these are businesses and residents and visitors alike, they want to see things happen. And just Terry and I met with the people that would be impacted for the Washington Street crossing this morning. And I mean, yeah, they know it's gonna be inconvenience, but just the little things like that, which is huge with the $300,000 price tag, but that is changing your mentality of downtown. And they want to see whether it impacts them directly through facade improvement grant or the streetscape out front or tourism marketing. They want to see things happen and love this downtown. And I think that overall that people are going to be welcoming it. We are working with Main Street on getting some more information out to the community and to the people. That'll be once the council decides to move forward with the public hearing. If the council decides not to, there's no sense in putting it out there. But that way people know all the facts in a neutral way. If this is something they want to provide input on or against. But, you know, it's all being driven from our downtown plan, strategic plans, and comprehensive plan ultimately. So, which are the community's plans. So people want to see us accomplish these things, and whether it's, you know, the streetscape project, there isn't nearly anything related to, or isn't as involved as an underground utility thing. So,
Yeah.
in a roundabout way, answer your question.
That was pretty good.
I've been quiet this whole meeting, so I was waiting for my turn.
Anyone else? I think, anything we can do to bring revenue into this community is positive. That's my way of thinking. If all of this beautification, development, et cetera, all of the properties in this town make it a place that people want to come, that's what we want, I think.
Well, and if I recall, it wasn't that long ago that we had a visitors from other cities come through, and that was specifically one of the things that they pointed out is that, you know, our downtown area does look spectacular.
Yeah. So, any other comments or questions? I think I have a motion in a second.
You do.
Jill, can we have a roll call, please?
Yes, sir. Ms. Stevens?
Yes.
Ms. Harlan?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Brock?
Yes.
Mr. Burris?
Yes.
And Mr. Frericks?
Yes, ma'am.
Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. I find that exciting. I like it. If you don't change it, go backwards. They certainly want to go backwards. There's too many times with that notation. Okay, Alderman's reports. John.
Yeah, I had something I just kind of want to read real quick that kind of ties into what we were just talking about. It was just a blog article that was actually sent to me by a good friend that I wanted to share, and I got a copy of it I'd love for you guys to take with you. But I highlighted a few pieces I just want to read to you, if that's okay.
That's fine. Go right ahead.
So anyways, he went to a community in Northeast Ohio, and some feedback about their downtown that was dying, and what he came to realize is that a healthy downtown is so much more than dollars. People have understood that for a city to function, it must offer a public place for people to gather. The downtown is the fundamental heart of a city. And if we let the downtown die, we are in essence putting the community on life support. The body cannot function without the heart. The city cannot function without the downtown. All the economic benefits of a vibrant and healthy downtown its importance actually is so much greater than that. And the downtown is the center of a community and is where people have always gone to gather together. It has its functions, dining, shopping, housing, entertainment, but it also has its purposes, and that purpose is to bring the community together. The gathering space the downtown offers is absolutely critical to the health of a community, and people will not use the downtown to gather if it doesn't also provide those basic functions. Downtown gives the city a sense of identity. When people first visit a city, they go downtown to form their perception of that place because this is the center of town and is the best reflection of what the city is and means. And the downtown embodies a place as a whole, and we form our opinions of an entire community based on this. The downtown is the hub of local businesses, the hub of local ownership. Downtown is also our strongest connection to our city. It's where we experience a sense of community and connects us to our place. The center of the community is the place that fosters a sense of belonging and identity. It's the place where people establish and build relationships. It's the place where people experience an emotional connection. And it is a place where a sense of community exists, and of all things, a vibrant downtown provides the city. The most important role is in providing a place where people develop a sense of connection to their community, because if people don't feel connected to your city, or people don't feel connected to our city, what keeps them from leaving?
Tammy?
It's hard to follow that.
Pam?
Nothing.
Rodney?
I'm gonna follow that.
Wendell?
No.
I am going to follow that. So it's interesting because I just had a remarkably related experience. A friend of mine was visiting Champaign this past weekend, and on Friday we met up and had some drinks in downtown Champaign. It's an area I hadn't visited honestly for a couple of years. And I was astounded at what was going on Friday night. Now, I know that most of it's being handled by the Champaign County Arts Council, I believe, but I would love to see, I know we do the movies and stuff like that, and we do stuff on the weekends, but I would love to see, they had just live bands on every other corner, and drinking in the street, God forbid. But it was really just an open kind of festival atmosphere, and they do this every single Friday. And I would love to see us expand and do more of that kind of thing, directly related to that, right? Give our residents something to connect to in our downtown area.
Police chief's report. John?
Don't have much. This coming Friday is Flag Day. This will be our second flag day of the year. So you'll see us out putting up flags and enjoy them. So,
That's a good report, John. Thank you. 30 seconds or less is perfect. Terry?
30 seconds or less, all right. So Callie mentioned we had the streetscape neighborhood meeting this morning. It was attended by 5 or 6 owners, tenants affected by that project. The meeting went really, really well. They're excited about something happening downtown, and especially on that block. So it was a very good meeting. The bid opening on that project is tomorrow morning. Center Street, Bridge Street, from Market all the way across Interstate 72, which does not include both bridges. That and the Marion Street project, that bid opening is still this Friday. And this coming up in future meetings, we will need to be discussing recreational cannabis and will your community allow cannabis businesses? How will your community regulate any allowed cannabis business? Will your community allow cannabis lounges, employees? so on and so forth. So get ready for those conversations. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Nothing like being a Debbie Downer.
It, good or bad, depends on how you look at it.
Anyway, before I ask for a motion to adjourn, I did want to bring you up to date. I publicized an opening for Ward 4, and we did have 8 people apply for the position. I'm in the process right now of meeting with 3 candidates.
Did you say 8?
8, yeah. I nearly fainted, you know, sometimes you have to go beg people to do it. We're at 8 this time, that's great. I'm going to interview 3, and I will have a recommendation for you at the next council meeting.
Perfect.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed?